Good morning, everybody. We are going to begin our June 7th Advisory Commission on Charter Schools meeting. It's Wednesday, like I said, June 7th. Welcome. And we will start first with the pledge to the flag. Mr. Engelberg is going to lead us in that.
Going to face the flag. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Again, welcome. It's a beautiful morning in our state capitol, and we're glad that you all are here, and it's great to see our commissioners and Cindy at the dais. We're awaiting one additional commissioner who's probably stuck in traffic, and that will make us a complete group, at least for today. There are two commissioners who will not be here for certain, we know of. So let's start first with introductions, and then we'll talk a little bit about today's agenda and do some housekeeping. So I'm going to start on my far left.
Good morning, Mark Ryan, representing Charter Schools.
Halloran, representing school boards.
Cindy Chan, representing the State Superintendent of Public Instruction.
I'm Brian Bauer, representing Charter Schools.
Curtis Washington, representing teachers.
Ari Engelberg. I'm a former charter school executive, but I fill an at-large position on the commission.
And then we've got some other individuals here. Bruce, thanks so much. Glad you're here.
Hi, Bruce Holliday, State Board of Education.
Great. It's good to see Judy behind you with the Charter Schools Division of the CDE. And up front, we've got Kathy and Kent, as well as McKenna right behind them. And I'll be pointing out a few things with that front table if you're going to be speaking today, how you can approach Kent at that table to sign up if you haven't done so yet. We'll go over that in just a minute. We don't have, did I see Carolyn Pfister as well? There you are. Okay, good to see you, Carolyn. Thanks. We don't have meeting notes for today. We'll double up at the next meeting to approve those from our last meeting as well as these. We'll take care of a few updates, Charter Schools Division as well as State Board updates, and then talk a little bit about the agenda, move into general public comment, and then launch into our action items today. Cindy, do you have an update for this morning? Yeah, great.
Sorry, I have like a bug, so I've got a cough drop, so I'm kind of slurring. Good morning, everyone. Just a couple of business updates. I wanted to, I think I say this every time we have a meeting, but we still have federal grant money that from the old grant that we have not been able to award. And so charter schools, new schools that are eligible for the federal fund, which is called, we call it the startup grant, you should apply and not wait for the new grant, because until we can allocate all the old grant funds, we cannot even access the new grant. So we're hopeful that we have at least, hopefully just one more round in 2017-18. We plan to deploy the same application in the summer and allow for a longer application period, and then possibly have a couple of webinars for new schools or schools that weren't as successful in the peer review and that they could reapply. So that money is out there, and it's very helpful for charter schools starting out, for developers. So that's the update on the grant. And then the division recently released its annual survey. So for charter schools that are active in 2017, if you're going to operate in next school year, you should fill out the online survey and report updated information to the department. I'd say the most important information is that we can receive is your fund type selection, and just sort of remember that that's an annual selection, and so you can change it. You only have two choices, local or direct funding, but keep in mind that the fund type means more than funding now. So it continues to be the mechanism to help us determine how you apply for funds and how you receive funds, but now it also helps to indicate how you're going to provide testing through the CASP. So please read your instructions on the survey that we've released and speak with your authorizer if you're thinking of making a change. And that's it for business. I wanted to welcome, we have a new staff member to the division, Kent Wong. He's going to be doing the timer today. So Kent is new to the Charter Schools Division. And then I want to thank Judy and her staff for the one item that we worked on, the appeal, and Kent, Kathy, and McKenna for their help with all of the web items that are posting the items to the web that we have today. Want to thank Nick when he'll be here later, and his branch, our technology staff, Carolyn, and the state board staff. We all work together to make these meetings happen. This one was a little lighter than last time, but August is going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, be prepared.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Bruce.
So I'm flying solo today because my colleague, member Trish Williams, unfortunately had a gymnasium injury, I guess, of some sort, and so she's healing right now, and we wish her well.
Yeah, we're taking bets on whether it was bench pressing or deep lunges or
No doubt it was extreme, whatever it was. So she normally makes the update, but I'll do the best I can. So at the May State Board of Education board meeting, the entire second day of the board meeting was devoted to charter items, and we went through a number of the funding determinations that we went through with you earlier the month before. But then we addressed all of the appeals and material revision charter items. And the board voted to deny the appeal for Celerity Dyad and Celerity Troika. The board approved Grossmont appeal. The board denied Oxford Prep. The board approved New West, which was a renewal of a state authorized charter, and the board approved the material revision for Paramount. And that's it.
Great, thank you very much. Bless you. Welcome. When you get a second, John, would you introduce yourself? Thanks.
Sorry, I'm late. One day I'll figure out parking in Sacramento. I'm John Gundry. I'm superintendent of the Santa Clara County Office of Education.
Great, glad you're here. So let's take a look at the agenda real quickly, and we're going to go in order today. And because of what we expect to be not necessarily brevity in discussion, but just a number of items, we're going to move through these items with perhaps a short stretch break after one or two of them, but we're not planning to take a lunch break before the last item today. Let me talk a little bit then before we move into general public comment. Cindy, thanks so much for acknowledging all of the staff who are involved in putting this meeting together, as well as the agenda items that we've got. So I'm not going to repeat the thanks to the different teams who make that all possible. You did that so well. But just to let the public know, and I go through this at every meeting, that all of the items that we have, you too can have electronically. We receive them electronically. And hard copies of those items are available on the back table in this hall. These meetings are live streamed. If you're interested in either receiving the materials electronically or watching a live stream of the meeting, you can do so on the ACCS link to the State Board of Education page. It falls under the commissions of the State Board of Education. You can also sign up with your email address to receive agenda postings and any of the items that we receive in advance as well. We're going to move into public comment, general public comment. So this would be comment on any of the items, or rather anything that's not agendized today. And for public comment here, as well as on specific agenda items, we allow for a minute. You can sign up with Kent now at the desk if you haven't done so already. We ask that you state your full name and the organization you represent if you do. And do we have any general public comment for this morning? And while Kent's making his way to the back of the room, is there anyone who wishes to address a non-agendized item this morning? And it doesn't appear as though there's anybody who's signed up, so we'll move into the items this morning. Who's going to be addressing item number one? I am. You are? Okay, great.
to do it from up here.
Okey doke. Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, so item 1 is kind of what I call like the regular funding determination item, because we have 2 others after that that kind of tap into a different area of the regulations. So in item 1, there are 16 charter schools that are included in the item. They're requesting a funding determination of 100%. I'm going to give just a real brief primer again on this that will help kind of with the next 2 items. So kind of keep in mind that the non-classroom-based instruction regulations really require charter schools to take a look at their school and how they're going to operate on an annual basis. Charter schools that do not meet the definition of the classroom-based instruction are required to spend at minimum levels in order to be considered for funding for their non-classroom-based ADA. So in this case, there are 3 criteria that these charter schools had to meet, because for full funding or 100% funding, there are 2 spending criterias and 1 that relates to pupil to teacher ratio. So for full funding, 100% funding, charter schools have to spend a minimum of 40% of their certificated staff costs and benefits as a ratio of their revenues, public revenues, and a minimum of 80% of instruction and instruction-related services, which includes the certificated piece in there, and that's why this percentage is higher, as a percentage of total revenues. And then the 3rd criteria is that the charter school has to have a pupil-to-teacher ratio of 25:1 or less. So in this case, I'll kind of keep it brief, all 16 schools met that criteria. There is one that whoops, College and Career Preparatory Academy that's authorized by the Orange County Department of Education, Orange County. Their ratio is greater than 25:1, it's 26.7:1. But the law also allows that we can look at, or the charter school can use, the ratio of the largest unified school district in the county or county in which it operates. And in this case, we requested from Orange County Department of Education a confirmation of which district was the largest and what the ratio was as a comparison, and it is Santa Ana Unified. Their ratio is 28.69:1, so the charter school falls within the criteria. And then just another couple comments. I mean, you'll see that on some of the percentages, I mean, they've all met the 40 and the 80. There are some that are on the higher end. There's one that's actually greater than 100%. That school was what we call deficit spending for the year, so that percentage just looks a little weirder, I think, and not one that we see that's as common. And then the other consideration you have to look at is how many years that we're going to approve the funding determination for. It has to be a minimum of 2 years, maximum of 5 years. We sort of have this criteria that we follow if a charter school, I know I hate using that word, if they don't meet the API, because that statute has not been revised, we look at if they did have an API in the past, and if they met it. In this case, none of the schools had met that, and so we then look at 4 years for a charter school that's been in operation for 3 or more years, and we have more audit reports, more fiscal information to look at, so we go with a higher number for those. Charter school that's been in operation less than 3 years, we recommend 3 years, and so that's sort of the range and the differences in the different years.
Great.
Have any questions?
Yeah.
Is there, that you know of, is there any legislation pending to change that API language?
I think there is areas of the department are looking at all of the API language and looking to change it. I don't think that what I've heard, and I don't know if state board staff can opine on this, if everything's going to be corrected in the next year, because there's so much,
Right.
But this is on the radar. I'm just not sure if this is one that's going to be a change in this session, but there's a whole list of things that need to have cleanup, and this one is one of them.
Because in particular, some of these may not have even been existing when there was API, so it's hard to compare, I mean, it's hard to even ask them for that because they didn't exist at the time. So it's not just old data, it's not data that existed.
That's right. And the reason why we didn't use, I mean, there's that other section of the law that allows for alternative measures, but we took the position that the commission has the discretion to approve anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So we didn't want to kind of burden the commission with looking at alternative measures of academic data, because really, this is a fiscal process. That academic piece is only in statute for a maximum 5 years, and we just didn't want to bog down the commission. So for the last 3-4 years, we've just kind of left that as you have the discretion to vote in a different way than how we recommend.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there any one of the schools or anybody else for that matter who's signed up to speak on this item?
Eric Premack.
Morning.
Good morning, Eric Premack, Charter Schools Development Center. Just a few different comments. There is one bill pending on the larger API issue. It has generated a lot of controversy and is now parked on the inactive file in the lower house. So I don't anticipate that's going to go through. I did want to share a couple of things. Back in March at the State Board meeting, Board Member Burr reiterated the need to take a look at the underlying regulations here and how outdated and dysfunctional they are. The large list that we'll see on the next item, I think, is testament to that. We also, I think, have a major workload issue here. The statute calls for a 120-day deadline to turn these things around. We're already beyond that, I think, starting this week. These won't go to the State Board until July, which will put us maybe 150 days out, over a month beyond the deadline and beyond the start of the fiscal year. So folks are starting the fiscal year not knowing if they're going to have 0% funding or 100%. So I would suggest that as a matter of practice going forward, that we make all of these determinations for 5 years until such time as we get revised regulations and the workload becomes more manageable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. Commissioners, any questions, comments, motion?
I'd like to move staff's recommendation.
There's a second? There'll still be discussion or questions if there's a motion on the table.
Second.
Okay, so we've got that motion to move staff recommendations. Any questions, comments on it? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, so that item moves forward to the State Board with a recommendation from the ACCS that staff recommendations are approved. And we will continue on then to item number 2. Thank you very much. You doing that as well?
Me again.
Okay, you're back.
Okay, so item 2, funding determination item again, but this one, there's 12 charter schools that, unlike the first item, these charter schools could not meet the spending thresholds or the minimum thresholds where they want to be. They are at a level of funding, just kind of on the natural, but all of them wanted to be, I believe, they've all requested 100%. And since they did not meet, they have the option of requesting consideration of what we call mitigating circumstances. That's sort of a terminology that's not defined in there, but it's in the law. It says it's a reasonable basis. So the commission, if you find that there's a reasonable basis based on what the charter school provides as such, you can, or we can as a body, approve a different recommendation for funding determination. And so that's the case with all of these. These tend to be more difficult to analyze. The charter schools, I want to say, put in a lot of work in these requests, and Eric is right. These did go beyond a certain time frame. However, the law does say that they have to be complete. These requests were not complete to the department's satisfaction. We asked for information from all of these schools, and they were very gracious to provide it on a very fast turnaround. because we had no breathing room from the last ACCS and the board meeting, and so these just kind of all were looked at the same time. But they all graciously responded, and we ended up kind of where we did based on the original request as well as sometimes 2 or 3 follow-ups from these schools. So I want to just kind of commend them on that because we didn't give them a lot of time to respond in some cases. So I want to kind of give some just general information. We haven't had a lot of the mitigating recently. And again, the same criteria is looked at as we do with regular requests. They submit, in this case, which I should have noted in the last item, this is prior year information. So the information you're looking at, what happened, how did the school spend in 2015-16? That's the fiscal year that they're submitting this information for. In this case, what we found is that for each one, and we can kind of do these however you want them, we look at them individually, but you'll see that some of the requests have a common sort of mitigating circumstance. I want to say that many of these are using one-time monies as the reason why they couldn't meet. And each one kind of provided mitigating circumstance. The item, we try to articulate all of the requests that they included. However, what you'll note is in our recommendation, we may not have considered all of those. We looked at all of the mitigating circumstances, but we may not have agreed with that. And so we've kind of put in at the end of the recommendation for each one as to what we consider to be the reasonable basis for the request. Kind of want to note that all 16 of these schools, I would consider them, for the most part, with the exception of 2 that are a little newer, to be what I consider veteran schools with this process. They've been around a long time, some of them 10 to 20 years. They've been through this process quite a bit, so they're very knowledgeable. And we looked at that. We looked to see, had they been approved with mitigating circumstances before? I think one of them had, but it was for a different reason. It was long ago. It was during deferrals and deficit factor times, so the reason was different. And we put these schools on a very high bar. I mean, there's an expectation that you know this process, you know it's required and you need to meet. But we felt that the reasons were very compelling. They were very different. They were very unique. They were exceptional and what we would consider to be one time. With that note, I wanted to kind of make a comment on reserves because I think we are in a kind of a different place. We hold a very high standard in terms of whether schools can just claim that they want to save money. In this kind of LCFF time, it's not as, I think, much of a reason we feel that it would have been maybe a few years ago. And that the regulations really sort of cap the reserves for non-classroom-based schools. It's kind of unfortunate because classroom-based charter schools, other charter schools don't have minimum requirement, but these do in some ways. They have to be able to articulate and explain and justify reserves that exceed 50% or 5% of their, over 5% of their expenditures. And so all of these schools did that. In some cases we had to follow up. So reserves for us is kind of the last thing we look at on the list. And most of these schools had very significant reserves. Some of them, which they could have used to spend on instruction and meet those targets. So we look to that as the last. I'm not even sure if we even considered that. I think there were other circumstances that we thought were more compelling. But because of that, we recommended 2 years for all the schools. They're a combination of the fact that they had sufficient reserves, they're knowledgeable in the process. We believe that these circumstances to be one time or exceptional, they shouldn't repeat itself. So our recommendation is to have them come back a little sooner than we normally would. And I think we usually do that with mitigating circumstances. When you underspend, we want you to come back to the commission and show that you're able to do that and meet those targets. So that's kind of in a nutshell the summary, but I can go through any one of the requests if you'd like to. I can go through all of them, whatever the wishes of the commission are. So.
I have a few questions, but I'll defer to commissioners if they do right now. And then we'll hear from anybody who's signed up to speak or present for any of these schools. What does the staff hear in terms of reserves from the schools? Is there a consistent theme as to why why they're saving or leaving money in reserve? Is it for facility purchases or renovation, rehabs?
We actually have, on the form that they submit, we've asked schools to kind of split out the reserves and identify which portions are for which. And so economic uncertainties is on there. A reserve for capital outlay or facilities. There's one for, let me look, the other category, that one we require an explanation, as well as anything that exceeds 5%, and that's really because of the regulations require that. And then what we call, like, I don't want to use that term, free reserves, but it's unassigned, it's unallocated, it's not restricted for anything. In some cases, the schools followed up and said, well, there is money there, but it really is restricted, and these got to be very complicated. It had to do with borrowing for bonds. And so the schools had to show good faith to show that they had unrestricted reserves. We thought, and we got a lot of documentation from those schools on that. So we felt like in those cases, unrestricted is sort of restricted, because they were trying to move forward and get facilities or get financing. So in those cases, they were able to explain that.
They were showing cash for collateral.
Yes, and they had documentation to show that that was required by a lender. So in those cases, those were a little bit different. But I think facilities is a big one, and so we ask questions on that. Well, is facilities something like you really are planning, or is it something that you're just kind of thinking about? Because if you don't have a real timeline, then maybe you should think about using some of that for instruction if there's no other area in your budget that you can spend from or cut expenses from or anywhere to meet. But most of them, I think, did justify the reserves. There's a couple cases where they had significant reserves and the mitigating, I think there's one, the mitigating circumstance was just, I think, insufficient. So I should say that there is one that we're recommending not approving. And so the funding determination would be how they spent at the regular level. So I think there's one.
Lakeside or National?
Yes, National University, and we can talk about that one. I think the mitigating circumstances, from what my recollection, without going back to the item, was that they had saved money to loan it to some other schools within their organization. The schools ended up closing, so they ended up reserving it. And so there was no other purpose that they used it for, and we didn't feel like that was for that school. That money should be spent for the pupils of the charter school, not another charter school. So I think that was the only one that we are recommending not approving. And then I think there is one, and I think there's some information which we did not look at before the meeting, so I think the school's probably here to present. There's one we did consider the mitigating circumstances. This is for Excelsior. We looked at everything that was provided, and then when we kind of put those numbers back into the formula, it doesn't get them to the level of full funding. And that is something that we do. We look at the numbers, and had it not been for the circumstances, would you have spent at the 80-40 level? And in all cases, they did, except for this one, and then the other school that we didn't consider. So for 14 of the schools, yes, with the mitigating circumstances, they clearly met the 40-80.
So two more questions, and then other commissioners may have them as well. Are you all, like in the case of capital outlay, are you tracking over time whether that outlay is actually used to, say, purchase a facility, which I would assume is the big one for a capital project, right, in reserve? So
only if they come back with it as another reason not to spend.
Right.
And I think that might have happened in the past with a school that had the mitigating circumstance again, and so we kind of followed up on that. But I mean, if they meet it, no.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if they're meeting, then the reserves, I mean, they're kind of managing their budget in a way where they're spending at the levels, yet they're still able to kind of build the reserves up.
Yeah,
So
you answered the question, like if they come in once for mitigation and then come back again, and capital outlay is one of the
we would want them to explain to the commission what, what is going on.
When are you planning to spend this?
Yes.
And then next is, I've been on the commission a long time, and maybe moving forward, we could actually have a record of the schools that are coming repeatedly for mitigation, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
my memory tends to go a little bit.
Yeah,
more as
and
I-
we're trying to kind of create more of a better, I want to say, database for this. I mean, it's, right now, I have to kind of like manually go back and find them
Yeah.
and then pull their requests. And some of these are so old
Right.
that because they were approved for like 4 or 5 years, I mean, it predates me involved in it. So, and the items were different back then. Some of them aren't as, the information is presented differently. So you have to kind of dig around for it.
Great in the summary, the cover sheet that we could see in that matrix if the school is a habitual user of this process.
Okay, yes. So I mean, I kind of do that, verbally, but no, I think I'll do that, try to build that in the future for
Even if it's
items
the
that will
last
help
like
you guys.
4 to 6 years or something, right?
Sure.
Yeah, more recently would be great. Yeah, are there any other commissioner questions? Then we'll hear from anybody who's signed up. Yeah.
Just a comment about maybe in the application form, there could be a space where they indicate to help make your life easier, to what extent have you used this process in the last 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, whatever we think is appropriate.
Yeah, we'll take everything into consideration, anything to help you guys out.
Quick question, I think Excelsior's going to present, I guess, is that true? Is Excelsior here to present? Yeah, okay, then I'll hold my question until.
Okay, great. So why don't we move then into the presentation as well as public comment? Do we have any groups that have signed up to speak on this item?
We have 3 people listed: Eric Premack, Ronnie Henderson, and Alicia Anderson.
Okay, come on up, please. Thanks for being here. Just, I'll repeat again a minute and state your full name and the organization. Yeah, please, come on up. Make sure the mic's on too.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, first off, I'd like to say thank you to the members of the commission. My name is Alicia Anderson, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Excelsior Charter Schools. I've been in education for 23 years, the last 8 of them being with Excelsior. Excelsior has successfully operated for over 22 years, and we've received 100% funding determination over those years. In my most recent FDF submission, I'm the person responsible for compliance with our non-classroom-based funding determination process. And in my most recent FDF, for the sake of simplicity, I did not include some of the mitigating circumstances that I could have added to the request. More specifically, in an attempt to keep our funding determination application simple and straightforward, we chose to focus on the one-time revenues because if one simply excludes them from the equation, Excelsior meets the expenditure targets specified by law. In their review, however, the CDE staff noted that we expended some of these funds and that one presumably should exclude these from the analysis. And if one excludes them, one reaches the conclusion that CDE did. I did not fully comprehend how the one-time funds would be calculated to achieve the 80% criteria of instructional expenditures and missed the criteria by 1.06% or $225,000. One of the reasonable bases is for the commission to recommend, other than the results of the criteria specified, may include but is not limited to the individual circumstances of the charter, such as the one-time or unique exceptional expenses for facilities. So what we didn't note in our mitigation application is that we purchased a facility for $1.8 million in that fiscal year of our determination. And I'm requesting that you consider the purchase of the school site that we made as an additional reason for mitigation. This one-time $1.8 million one-time purchase is in addition to our normal facility costs that we incur annually and is one of the allowable reasons for mitigation specified in law. If so, we would substantially exceed the 80% instructional expenditure target. We are a hybrid independent study program, and our facility must meet the needs of given market conditions for our properties in our service area. So it's very important that we act quickly when something comes up to acquire that property as they come on the market. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Great. Were you two combining your time?
Yeah.
Great. We may ask you to back up for questions, but
Thank
thanks
you.
for the presentation.
Eric Premack again. When we saw the agenda item post and saw that Excelsior was recommended for a cut, we took a look at the form and contacted the school and discussed these issues with them, and we think that they have a very clear case here for being provided with mitigation would ask that you support them in that. With respect to the reserves issue, we think we would really like to get this issue fixed. Telling folks that they can only have a 5% reserve is a very, very difficult thing to do for many of these schools. It leaves them very exposed. And while, yes, we do have a new LCFF funding system, as the governor and others have noted repeatedly, we're pretty much overdue for a recession. We almost had another deferral this year. Revenues turned out to be a little better than expected. Typical school district has reserves anywhere in the 10 to 20% range. I think average is about 12% for most districts these days, which is double the amount that we're allowing the schools here. And yet these schools face much greater volatility and risks than a typical school district does. So we just think that these are issues that do need to be reviewed. We do need to update and revise the regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that it in terms of comment?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, commissioners, any questions or comments on these items?
I think what I heard them say is that they didn't include information about, acquiring a location, and that was something that they could have included as a mitigating circumstance.
Yeah, I believe this school just included the one-time money, and I want to be when you think about that, I mean, most of the one-time funds, with the exception of the energy money, because I look through the Energy Commission's regulations and their application, most of that can't be spent on instruction, just based on my review. So those, we tend to just back out all of the money, because when you think about the way the formula works, the expenditures won't have that in there. So when you remove the revenues, it's kind of removed completely. On these other one-time pots, the mandate money and the educator effectiveness, most of those can be used for instruction. In fact, I don't even, in some cases, that's all it can be used for, staff salaries and things like that. So if they're getting the benefit of the expenditure in the ratio, you don't remove all of the revenue. It's like a double benefit. So what we removed, or what we considered in the formula, was just to not consider the unspent revenues, because they've gotten the benefit of the expenses within the formula. So that kind of gave them within the 40/80, it gives them that boost. But the revenues, we removed anything that wasn't spent. We thought that was fair. Otherwise, it's kind of like double counting. In this case, we did that, and the numbers just didn't work out. All that the school provided was the one-time money. And so I think the charter school is providing something that they thought they should have provided. I just want to point out something on the school, so you might want to ask them that if you choose to. This school had one of the highest reserves. It's over 200% of their expenditures. So their fund balance at the end of 15-16 was $42 million. That didn't factor in. We still looked at their mitigating circumstances, and we did consider it. This charter school was also approved for its prior funding determination with mitigating circumstances, I believe. And I don't have the rationale. So they spent like 46 and 77, and they were approved for funding the last time. They might be able to recall if you're interested in what that was. I don't have that information with me. So, there's a couple things about this one, but still, we would have considered all of the unspent revenues, but in this case, it didn't get them over that percentage. So the information they provided today is not something we had. It was something that they brought in today. So it's not something I can comment on.
And if let's say the action is taken today, or rather the recommendation to the board that they be approved for what's recommended here, they could resubmit for something retroactive, or could they bring back an application with this new information to you all for review at some point for retroactive?
Yes, I mean, if you're going to consider it today, or if you're not, we can look at it for the state board meeting. So I don't mind looking at it and considering it at the state board. I just can't comment on something that we're presented with, at the meeting, and I don't know if you want to either. But I am willing to look at it between now and the state board and factor that into our recommendation going forward. If we find that we can't recommend that, then I would recommend the school come to the state board meeting and present their information. But the department will look at this new information.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Motion or?
Is it appropriate to ask the school if the school is willing to temporarily withdraw the application, or I don't know what the right terminology is, but to say that they will resubmit with this new information, we potentially would take action on everything except the Excelsior, and then the Excelsior application, and then they could resubmit prior to the July board meeting?
So come to August ACCS for the subsequent state board meeting?
It's always stronger to have the commission's recommendation.
I mean, I obviously they have the reserves to be, it's not like they're going to shut down. I mean, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but I mean, they have the reserves. And so in order to have an affirmative recommendation from the commission, I don't know if the school would be open to that idea, but then that would ensure that there was an affirmative, or a higher likelihood of an affirmative recommendation by the commission. So I don't know how the school feels about that, but if they're, I mean, we've certainly done on-the-spot withdrawals from in the past, so.
Yes, please, you're on, yeah, thank you.
Can I just tell you that the $42 million reserve, 36 million of that is actually a facility. It's designated, we don't have cash in that amount, absolutely not. We had a facility that we were fortunate enough to receive back in 2008, 9. We really worked hard with our chartering agency to get a $36 million facility. That's what's in our books. So our cash amount is not at that level. We, at the time, you know, as per the our auditors, we did place it on as part of our financials, and so that's why you see that large amount. But we do not have that amount in cash. We are, I think I'm speaking for, we are willing to withdraw and resubmit information. If that's the recommendation, we will most certainly do that, and we can submit whatever information is needed.
So maybe instead of like a withdrawal, we'll use the term postponement or yeah?
We have a few in August
Yeah.
that we couldn't agenda.
So that the staff can consider the information that you submitted today and then bring that recommendation forward, and we will as well, because there'll be an opportunity for us to have that information in our packet. Okay. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think it would be also important to include the information we just heard about that being a facility rather than cash, right, in terms of the reserve.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's an important piece of the conversation as well.
Because the way that the form identifies it is 36 million as other. And so I might have been explained on the form. I was trying to look it up, but that's just, yeah, maybe it was, a lot of it is on the audit doesn't really explain things. So we have to ask the school.
Okay. So
I'd like to move staff's recommendation less the Excelsior, which is postponed.
Okay. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the item and all of the recommendations with it?
I just had a point of clarification. Good morning. My name is Ronnie Henderson. I'm Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services for Excelsior Charter Schools. My question would just be that, would that be a new application process for us? Or is it just an amendment to our current one? Okay, thank you.
If you can submit the information to the department, we have the form, you filed timely. We just need what you want to add to your mitigating circumstances, and then we'll consider that and bring it forward at the August meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, questions, comments?
Yeah, I just wondered if that's building isn't part of the reserve. What is their reserve?
I'm looking at the form, but I think the charter school probably wants to answer. There's like a brief description of what that large sum is, if that's what you're asking, Curtis.
Yeah, I mean, I just would like to know what they consider their reserve to be.
Our cash reserve, I usually average about $6 million of our funds, which is, our operating expenses are about 1.2 million with our payroll and everything. So we have about four months of reserve, of cash reserve in our fund balance.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got a motion that's been seconded. Any more questions or comments on it? Yeah.
I have a question about process. I know that if you have a regular charter petition before you, this is for a governing board. If they want to withdraw, the board has to agree to that withdrawal if it's already been agendized. And so does that have to happen here, or can we just, do we not follow the same rule?
How do you want to handle that? I mean, someone did say withdraw it, but then that would mean a resubmission of the entire application, right? Which could be the same thing.
But this has come up in Santa Clara County more than once, and we've gotten a legal opinion on this, and it's been pretty consistent that the board, even if the petitioner wants to withdraw, the board can still rule on the petition if they choose to, if it was already agendized. And it was within, I think, like 48 hours of the meeting. If they withdraw before the agenda is finalized, that's fine. But if it's after it's been posted and it's to stand before the governing board and withdraw, the governing board has to approve that withdrawal. They can choose to go ahead and rule on the petition.
And so could we just then table the vote on that one? I mean, is that, and put it over to the next meeting?
We could.
Well, we could also agree to it. I'm just asking if it needs another motion.
We haven't done that before here because there's been concurrence. At least the petitioner said, I'm agreeable to polling it. Yeah. I suppose in a case, though, where the board still wants to take action, it could, right? And that's what you're speaking to. Right. I mean, if somebody wants to make a motion to take action on it, we could do that. I haven't heard one to say, let's approve the staff recommendation on this one. So I'm fine.
Would it be in order to make a motion to hold it over until the next meeting?
You could do that.
But I think the motion would be to allow them to withdraw.
Pull it from the agenda.
Right.
Okay. And that I'm fine with that. If somebody wants to make that motion, we can entertain it.
So I'm fine amending my motion, but I think just to help them, I would say, rather than withdrawing, say that the commission would consent to a postponement of their application consideration pending submission of additional information to the CDE.
Okay. So
So the motion is staff's recommendation less Excelsior with an agreement that they be allowed to postpone until the August meeting to allow them sufficient time to submit additional information to the CDE staff.
Okay. Second that? Yes. Okay, very good. So we've got a motion that's been seconded. Any more questions or comments on it? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, so that moves forward with the following recommendation, that staff recommendation on all items except Excelsior be forwarded to the state board for its consideration, and that the Excelsior item is postponed, allowing that organization to submit the information that we received this morning for it to be reviewed by CSD prior to the August commission meeting. All right, why don't we move forward to, or item 3 is the last one, right, on funding? Yes. Okay, and then we'll take a short break after that one for a stretch and restroom.
Okay, so item 3 includes requests by 5 charter schools, and this is not one that we see very often, but you'll probably remember these schools. These 5 schools came before the commission last year, and I want to say it was in June, and the schools had submitted a consideration for mitigating circumstances. The commission approved a denial of that, and since the schools were at a funding level of 0, those went forward to the state board. The state board also recommended the denial of the mitigating circumstances, and so for 2 years, 2016-17, 2017-18, these 5 schools, and they're all, I'm just going to use the term Academy of Arts and Sciences schools. That's the organization that was running them. Now it goes by a different name. I think it's Compass. And they were zeroed out for 16-17, and they will be again for 17-18. However, there's an area of the regulations in the funding determination law that allows for a school to come back for reconsideration. So what we look at is the same 2 years. They can't add to the years. And within those 2 years, we would look at a different year of funding, because the year of data that we looked at back then was 2014-15, which is kind of how we always do it. It's prior year data. In this case, the school's presenting its 2015-16 financial data and pupil-to-teacher ratio and other information for consideration. And what the school is saying is, by looking at this new data, we now show we're spending at a different level. We were at 0. Now, in this case, the schools are spending at 100% level for the 2 years, or at least for the 15-16 year, excuse me. So we are now looking at 2015-16 data for consideration, and if approved, the funding determination would replace what was previously approved by the state board. So it would be, in this case, if 100% was approved, the 2016-17 year would be recalculated, because again, this is a percentage that's applied to the charter schools non-classroom based ADA, so it mainly affects through LCFF funding, lottery, AB 602. There's not a lot of ADA driven programs. Even though 16-17 is passed, the department, School Fiscal Services Division, would go back and reopen up that year for the charter schools, and they could recalculate their funding, and it would sort of give them, additional funding as to where they should have been had they gotten the 100%. And then it would again be for the 2 years. There's just a little bit of a background on the schools that I provided in the item. This organization, when it was formed, it's not very old. Based on the audit report, it reports the organization was formed in 2011. They started off with 15 schools, and then 3 of them had closed, 2 of them were kind of transferred in terms of how they were operated to another nonprofit. They ended up with 10 schools. So when they came before you last year, there were 10 Academy of Arts and Sciences schools. All of them received the 0% and denial of the mitigating circumstances. However, since then, at the end of the year, 5 more have closed, and so only the 5 are before you. So I was just kind of bringing that up in case you remember 10, because that was a kind of a different recommendation that the commission had made. So now we have 5, and that's all we looked at. They only submitted the request for the 5 schools because the other 5 have closed. They closed before 16-17, so that 0% didn't impact those 5 closed schools. So I can answer any questions on that. I'm trying to think. Oh, one more point. The funding levels are at the minimum 40, minimum 80, but on the pupil-to-teacher ratio, for 2 of the schools, they have an audit finding in that year where they didn't meet the 25-to-1 or less. And I think the charter school can speak to that, but the finding is I think it's been appealed. But since we don't have a formal action by the Education Audit Appeals Panel, at this point, they don't meet that criteria. Now there's another area of the regulations. If they prevail on the audit finding, we can bring them back again, and you can reconsider, and it's on another area of the regulations that we hardly ever look at. So I've talked to the charter school about that. There's another opportunity for them, depending on how the vote goes here and with the state board, for them to get to 100% at some point if they end up prevailing, with the audit. So I can answer any questions. I believe the charter school representative is here, in case you want to ask him any questions of the schools or of the data.
Great. Any questions of Cindy for clarification? Then we'll hear from the petitioners, anyone who signed up for a public comment. Okay, so Curtis?
Yeah, Cindy, so you said it would be considered for 2 years? So would we go back and reevaluate the 14, 15 year?
No, that is what it is. We looked at the audit, right? Yeah. In terms of actual numbers, they didn't spend at those levels. And so that's a done year. This is kind of like, a do-over for them, but it's looking at another year of data. Yeah. So.
Be going forward.
Yes.
Okay. Any others right now? Do we have signups for this item?
JJ Lewis and Eric Premack.
Okay, great. Good morning.
Testing J.J. Lewis Campus Charter Schools, formerly known as Academy of Arts and Sciences. We're testing the staff on reviewing and finding a lot of the older regulations. So I was here this time last year, June, and I spoke about the change of leadership at Academy of Arts and Sciences. I had just been named the CEO in February. When you looked at that data from 14-15, it was something that I had no real hands or stake in the game on. Our management team really didn't. And so we were talking last year with Mitigating Circumstances about a new organization. And what it ended up boiling down to with the recommendation last year was come back with the proof. We'll come back with your audit and data to show that you are making the necessary changes and adjustments in your operations. And we have done that. Proud to say that we understand the rules and regulations, and we are operating at full efficiency and ensuring that we meet all the spending requirements and thresholds. Now, there was an audit finding, and we've spoke with staff about that, and happy to answer any questions you might have. But really appreciate staff time and Commission's consideration of our redetermination request. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Maybe some questions of you. Eric.
Eric Premack, Charter School Center. We just wanted to commend Mr. Lewis's work on cleaning up what had been a very problematic set of organizations. I don't think it's easy or pleasant work, and pleased to see him in front of you today with a much more positive scenario to play out and support the staff recommendation here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Thank you so much. Okay, commissioners, any questions or comments?
I would move staff's recommendation.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Okay, questions or comments now on that? Yep.
The two that didn't reach the 25-to-1 level, what do they qualify for?
85?
85.
85, is that what we're recommending? Okay.
Yeah.
And for 2 years. So this is, again, the 16, 17, 17, 18 years.
Any others? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, so that moves forward with an ACCS recommendation to accept staff recommendations to the State Board of Education on those schools in that item. Thank you very much. So we're going to take a 5-minute stretch break before we move into item 4, which is our one and only appeal item this morning, and that's the establishment of the Sweetwater Secondary School. And we'll take that item up in about 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. We are going to reconvene this meeting. Thank you all. And move into item number 4, which is the consideration of Sweetwater Secondary School denied by that Union School District, Sweetwater Union, as well as the San Diego County Board of Ed. And it's great to see Judy Hall from the CSD team presenting this afternoon. No, we're still in the morning, excuse me. Yeah, it's way early for us still. We're not used to this. Thanks, good to see you.
Nice to be here, thank you. So I am Judy Hall. I'm an administrator in the Charter Schools Division, the Oversight Unit, and I'm here to present item 4, which is an appeal, as Brian mentioned, for the establishment of the Sweetwater Secondary School, which was denied by both the Sweetwater Union High School District and the San Diego County Board of Education. And at this point in time, I thought it would be somewhat beneficial to just do a quick brief on past activity at the state board level. If you'll recall, the Grossmont Secondary Charter School was approved by the State Board of Education in May. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because the CMO that oversees the approved Grossmont and Adeo Charter School 2, which was approved by the State Board of Education in the spring of 2016, is the same proposed CMO that would oversee Sweetwater Secondary School if that's approved by the State Board. And I also thought it would be beneficial to create a PowerPoint slide, just one, that hopefully brings some clarity. You can all see it okay? No?
White, but we've got a blue screen in front of us. Is it showing on the monitors in the back? Not yet.
Maybe a little delay.
Warming up.
But to preface what it would look like if you could see it, I have Audio Charter School, Inc., and this is directly related to Sweetwater, but also connected to Audio Charter School and Audio Charter School 2 and Grossmont Secondary School. So,
Got it?
Yay. Good
thank
job.
you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So now you can see in real time. So Audio Charter School, Inc. at the top, non-benefit corporation. Governing board members are listed. Corporate officers are also listed, and I think your screen's big enough you can actually read that. And then underneath there is school leadership, Jay Garrity. And underneath in blue are the two current SBE authorized charter schools. Audio Charter School 2, which operates, let's see, 4 resource centers. Grossmont Secondary School, most recently approved by the state board, which has 3 resource centers. And then in yellow is the proposed for Sweetwater Secondary School. And there's a different structure here because, again, this is a school that doesn't exist yet. Sweetwater is the establishment, and it currently operates under the Charter School of San Diego, the Student Success Program, Inc., corporate officers, Mary Bixby, Lynn Alipio, and Angela Neri, secretary. If approved, Sweetwater Secondary would operate 3 resource centers, Plaza Bonita, National City, Somerset, Chula Vista, and Heritage Town in Chula Vista. So I thought it was important that you could see this layout. And I'm sure the petitioner and maybe even those in public comment will speak to some of the organizational structures for this school. So I'll leave that up while I'm talking because it is somewhat germane to some of the talking points. The CDE does note that in the Sweetwater petition itself, the petitioner presented the charter documents to Sweetwater Union High School District in order to comply, and this is quote out of the petition, in order to comply with the 3rd District Court of Appeal decision in the Anderson Union High School District v. Shasta Secondary Homeschool 2016, and the court's opinion that a charter school resource center must operate within the boundaries of its authorizing school district. That's in the petition for Sweetwater Secondary. The CDE notes that Education Code 47605.1A2 provides that a charter school granted by the SBE may only locate within the geographic boundaries of the chartering entity that initially denied the petition for the charter. Additionally, the CDE notes that its code section 476051C provides that a charter school may establish a resource center, meeting space, or other satellite facility located in a county adjacent to that which the charter school is authorized if the facility is used exclusively for educational support for non-classroom based independent study, and the charter school provides its primary educational it primarily serves education in a majority of, and brings in a majority of pupils that are actually residents of the county where the school is authorized and the district that it's authorized in. So that's an important distinction. And then pursuant to Ed Code 476051D, a single site outside of the district boundaries but within the county is permissible, but only where 1, the school attempted but was unable to locate a facility within the district, or 2, the site outside of the district is temporary. And in the Sweetwater case, neither 1 or 2 are applicable. Therefore, the Sweetwater Secondary School proposes to operate 3 resource centers, and again, they're the Plaza Bonita, the Somerset, and Heritage Town. And all three of these resource centers are located within the boundaries of Sweetwater Union High School District, but are currently operating as part of the Charter School of San Diego, which is authorized by the San Diego Unified School District. So therein lies the rub, if you will. That's why Sweetwater is coming before you and then coming before the board to establish a new school, operating 3 resource centers. The CDE is proposing that the State Board of Education hold a public hearing to approve the petition to establish the Sweetwater Secondary School under the oversight of the SBE. This recommendation includes technical amendments, which the CDE finds necessary in order for several of the elements in the petition presented to meet minimum criteria being reasonably comprehensively described. The CDE also proposes the following conditions, and I am going to read those for the benefit of everybody in the room. That the Sweetwater Secondary may contract with Student Success Programs Incorporated, Altus Institute, Inc., Altus Mirus, Inc., Altus Laurel, Inc., or any other affiliated or related organizations for goods and/or services if all such related entities agree to timely respond to all CDE's inquiries into their operations, including but not limited to management, fiscal, personnel, procurement, programmatic, advice, advocacy, outreach, professional development, supervisory tasks, facilities operations, facilities financing, and service agreements in accordance with Ed Code 476043, which is responding to the inquiries of an authorizer. And that the Sweetwater Secondary School fully cooperate with any investigation in their operations conducted pursuant to 476044. Second condition is that Sweetwater Secondary School, Student Success Programs, Altus Institute, Altus Mirus, or Altus Laurel, and or any other affiliates agree to timely respond to all CDE inquiries regarding negotiations, revisions, and or amendments to master agreements between the Sweetwater Secondary and any of the related entities, and to provide the CDE with a reasonable opportunity to review any of the new agreements entered into between the Sweetwater Secondary School and any of these affiliates. And third condition is that the Sweetwater Secondary Board must revise the Sweetwater Secondary petition with all the technical amendments by the required deadlines as noted in the CDE's charter petition review form, which is your attachment 1. The CDE finds these conditions support the Memorandum of Understanding, Section 1, Governance and Organizational Management, Business Services, Education Management, and Vendor Contracts between the State Board of Education and the charter schools it authorizes. Now, of course, Sweetwater Secondary doesn't exist yet, so it doesn't have an MOU, but I will share with you that the current SBE authorized charter schools, save for Grossmont, which hasn't gotten their MOU yet, this is a section 1 in governance. So once that Memorandum of Understanding is fully executed between the State Board of Education and the charter school, it is assumed that each one of these sections will be applied to. So I thought it just supports the condition or the rationale for the condition, if you will, that we do require several things in Section 1, and I can just briefly go over those if you'd like me to state what the MOU actually says. Section 1, it does say that if within the term of the charter, the school contracts with a vendor to provide business services, including but not limited to payroll, accounting, and budgeting, attendance accounting, fiscal reporting, contract management, or purchasing, the school must provide the CDE a copy of its agreement that specifies the exact services to be provided and their cost, the term of the contract, the school's provision for monitoring the contract to ensure compliance with the contract and the quality of service. In addition, if the school contracts with an education management organization, an EMO, or a charter management organization, a CMO, the school will provide the following: a draft of the proposed management contract, recent corporate annual report, and audited financial statements for the EMO or the CMO, a description of the EMO, CMO's roles and responsibilities for the management of the school, the internal controls that will be put in place to guide the relationship. It also will provide the CD a list of other schools managed by the EMO and the CMO, and the academic and operational results of such management. Additionally, the MOU lists a list of and background on the EMO and CMO's leaders and board of directors, a letter of assurance from the EMO or the CMO or the CMO that it has a conflict of interest policies in place, and that none of the principals of either the CMO or the EMO or the school have conflicts of interest. Finally, and that's the summary of Section 1, the governance section of the MOU. Finally, in winding up this presentation, the Sweetwater Secondary School, the petition proposes to serve 360 grade 7 through grade 12 pupils in 2017, 18, and 520 grade 7 through grade 12 pupils in the year 20. Let's see, that should be 21. I think we got a projection for 3 years in an independent study homeschool program. The CDE staff review report is attachment 1. It does provide the full analysis of each of the elements of the petition and additional requirements. The agenda item 4 is brief analysis of the CDE staff report. I do know that the Sweetwater Secondary School folks are here to present to the commission. I can tell you that the San Diego County Board of Education is not here, and I'm not sure about the Sweetwater Union High School District. So, yes, okay, thank you so much.
Not necessarily to you, but commissioners received this handout on our tables this morning. Do you know who they're from?
Yes, yeah.
They're from Sweetwater. Okay, great. We're trying to determine the origin. Great. Okay, any clarifying questions right now for Judy? I'm going to explain the public hearing process, which I should have done before we got started, but it's a good time to do now. Clarifying questions? Okay. So we have just heard now, thanks Judy, we've just heard now from CDE staff. I want to explain the public hearing process. We're now going to hear from the petitioner, who will have about or up to 10 minutes, not counting questions that we may have. And then following that, since there's just the district here today, not the county, but typically when both are here, they have a combined 10 minutes. So the district will then have 10 minutes to present to the commission. And then after those presentations have taken place, any clarifying questions, not necessarily substantive, but clarifying questions, we close the public hearing. We will take public comment at that time and then move into the deliberation period for this item. So we're going to ask the petitioners to approach the lectern, and they will have 10 minutes. Welcome.
Good morning. I just wanted to hand out updated org charts that we did submit to CDE, and I don't know if they're posted as part of the ACCS agenda or not. Good morning, Chairman Bauer, Commission members, CDE staff, and State Board Liaison. My name is Wade Ashbrenner, and I'm the lead petitioner with the Sweetwater Secondary School. I want to thank the CDE staff for their review and recommendation to approve the Sweetwater appeal. We look forward, we accept the conditions that the CDE staff has placed on the petition, and we look forward to working with staff on clearing up the technical amendments. In September of 2016, as part of a larger compliance plan for the Charter School of San Diego, we submitted a petition for resource centers located within the Sweetwater Union High School District. We have appealed the decision of the Sweetwater Union High School District because we made a commitment to the students and families that we serve in San Diego's South Bay region. Guided by the Anderson decision, the Sweetwater Secondary School will be comprised of 3 resource centers located within the boundaries of the Sweetwater Union High School District, of which the Plaza Bonita Resource Center has been serving families since 2012-2013 school year. The IDEO Nonprofit Board will be the governing body of the Sweetwater Secondary School, and I have a development team member, Christopher Carpenter, who will take us through the timeline of the governance and the structure of the nonprofits.
Thank you all. Once again, my name is Christopher Carpenter from Young Mini and Core. I serve as legal counsel to Sweetwater Secondary School and was a part of their development team. Initially, before I go into some of the information around governance, I just want to clear up a couple of statements and perhaps misconceptions that may be out there. Initially, the large format sheet that you were provided was developed independently of us by Dennis Wolliver-Kelly, who is legal counsel to Sweetwater Union High School District. That sheet does not show the organization of the nonprofits that actually operate today. That's based on data from 2012, 2013, and much farther beyond. The actual organizational structure of the corporations is exactly as provided to the CDE on that front. We provided all the documentation regarding those organizational changes to the CDE and have cooperated with the CDE on providing any and all information they deem necessary to consider the petition. So I'd just like to point out that the governance and the operations of Adeo Charter School nonprofit have been much different from what's being presented by Sweetwater for over a year now, a year and 6 odd months. Secondly, just to clear up that Adeo Charter School nonprofit, the governing body for these 3 charter schools that's coming before the state board, is not technically a charter management organization. It is a charter operating nonprofit. A CMO will typically take fees or have a contract, take some kind of services in exchange for fees to a school. This is not the case here. The nonprofit directly operates these schools, it directly governs these schools, and there's no exchanging of fees therein. The schools will practice fund accounting so that any and all revenues given to one school versus the other are going to be utilized for that school and on those students that are there. Additionally, there has been one slight change to the org chart as presented by staff, which is that the secretary of the corporation, Jane Goronsky, has resigned her position. And so we are looking forward to an appointment of a secretary at the next meeting of Adeo Charter Schools nonprofit. With that said, I do want to express that the efforts of Adeo Charter School nonprofit and Sweetwater Secondary School here are an action to be proactive to meet the compliance needs in regards to the change in CDE policy and the law's interpretation following the Shasta Union High School case. This is an effort to do so without utilizing waivers, without utilizing any turnaround. We did this straightforward in an effort to maintain our schools as open, maintain this resource for students, and to continue the operations of a very successful and 20-year running charter school program, in fact, one of the first in the state. To clarify some of the governance changes that have happened, in January of 2016, the nonprofit corporations that then operated the Charter School of San Diego and the other charter schools operating under charter petitions from the San Diego Unified School District and other districts went through a major reorganization. That reorganization established a more streamlined structure for reporting. It allowed for better governance, allowed for better and more clear reporting requirements, and allowed for a structure that was much more understandable for people to look at and see. During that reorganization process, the organizations were put into independent nonprofits, and they severed all governance relation to Altus Institute. So it no longer, as of January 2016, had any governance relationship with Altus Institute. They were independent nonprofit organizations with no sole member or any of that. And that's been in place since January of 2016. The Adeo Charter, the Adeo Charter School Corporation was established to govern the charter schools that are operating under the oversight of what we assume to be the State Board of Education, since we anticipated being rejected at both Sweetwater Union High School District and San Diego County on the basis of our operations in the past and our relationships with them in the past and the indications that we received from their offices that there would be really no consideration of our petition. So part of the organizational structure is to have a nonprofit that is accessible entirely to the State Board of Education, and that would be Adeo Charter School nonprofit. Again, we do accept the conditions that are being placed on us by the report and are looking forward to resolving any of the technical amendments. There was a one-year contract that was agreed to after January 2016 between Adeo Charter School nonprofit and Altus Institute for specific services regarding research and advocacy. And the purpose of that contract was really to ensure that the new reorganization plan and the attempts to ensure the success of the out-of-district in-county resource centers actually occurred, and that there was a streamlined process to ensure that the information was, that the nonprofit, Adeo Charter School nonprofit, was establishing itself as fully independent and to see this issue resolved. That contract terminates of its own terms on June 30, 2017, prior to July 1, and there has been no intention on the part of Sweetwater Secondary School or Adeo Charter School nonprofit to continue any contractual relationship whatsoever with Altus Institute. Because the nonprofit is operating ACCS 2 successfully and has received approval for Grossmont Secondary School, and assuming we receive approval for Sweetwater, all proposed charters will be established for that school, all the resource centers will be taken care of, and so the charitable purpose of the organization's connection will be satisfied, essentially. We received notice. We also received notice from the Altus Institute Board of Directors that they have approved an early termination of that contract, actually. And so that contract will terminate based on the ratification of it at a publicly noticed Brown Act compliant meeting of the Adeo Charter School nonprofit. And they have a meeting scheduled for June 22nd to take that action. And again, the Adeo Charter School nonprofit is subject to the Brown Act, to the Public Records Act, to the Political Reform Act, and to the Nonprofit Integrity Act, which requires Attorney General oversight of all nonprofits who receive over $2 million in revenue each year. With that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Wade for our remaining time to discuss more of the programmatic elements, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Right. Thank you, Chris. I just want to touch on a few key points here with the remaining time we have. First, I want to talk about financial stability. The governing board of the Charter School of San Diego on March 30th of 2017 passed a board resolution to transfer the net result of operations for the Plaza Bonita Resource Center to the Sweetwater Secondary School. The combined net result of operations for fiscal years 2014-15 and 2015-16 is $1,840,000. So that money will go towards the budget that you see in the petition. Since the Charter School of San Diego's founding in 1994, its financial and compliance audits have consistently found no exceptions, and the school has earned 100% funding under SB 740 for multiple years. The students that make up the Sweetwater Secondary School and are currently attending the Plaza Bonita Resource Center, the data breaks out like this. 67% of the students in middle and high school are credit deficient upon enrollment at that resource center. About 69% are socioeconomically disadvantaged. 84% represent a minority student population. Additionally, 17% of the students have been identified as special education, and currently 15% of the students are English learners. The program with the Charter School of San Diego was able to decrease its overall dropout rate from 4.6 to 2.4% from 2011 to 2016, and we look forward to providing the same practices in the Sweetwater Secondary School. And in closing, I would just like to thank you for your support of this petition and recommend it for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any clarifying question right now of the petitioners? Okay, we may call you back up. Thank you both. Okay, we'll now move into the district presentation. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. Thanks for hearing our point of view on this issue. I know these things get complicated. Excuse me, I actually forgot a document.
That's okay.
My name is Kevin Fannin. I'm counsel on behalf of Sweetwater School District. We are the denying district. We denied the petition because basically it did not provide, it wasn't reasonably comprehensive, and petitioners were demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program that's described. We still believe that. We're here today because we believe that. And I just want to go over a few points that just totally shocked me today, which is CD staff indicated that their petition says that they submitted to comply with Anderson, and she quoted the petition. That was not in the petition that we reviewed because we were submitted a petition prior to that decision. So to the extent that they submitted a different petition to you guys versus the one that we reviewed, that's inconsistent with the Charter Schools Act, and we have some concerns about the legality of this appeal in general. That was news to me today, which I had not been prepared for. But our main concern is really that the Sweetwater Secondary School is a school proposed to be part of the Altus Charter School Network, yet when you read the petition, it's described as if it's this neighborhood school that's part of the Sweetwater community. And we prepared this chart not because we wanted to spend all this time making this chart, but because we had to figure out what was actually going on because the petitioners were not telling that to us. So today, we reviewed all these letters that petitioners submitted to you guys. This was all new to us. This was not addressed in prior appeals, and we're happy that they're finally disclosing their structure, and we believe, for the most part, that what was submitted is consistent. But that's not in the proposal, and the proposal is what's before you. And we know that it's the SBE's practice when there's changes to the proposal before you, that those are not subject to review. They're beyond the scope of what was reviewable. And that was what occurred with the first Oxford Preparatory Academy petition. It was submitted, they made changes during the pendency of the review, and that would made it not subject to review. And the Charter Schools Act is very clear that the proposal that's submitted must be the same. So we have serious concerns about that. Now, the petition before the ACCS, like I said, it presents a single program. It's more like this, when in reality it's like this. And we just don't think it's tailored to the Sweetwater community. It's not realistic. I mean, if you were in San Diego, our position would be obvious. There's billboards, there's bus ads, there's all this marketing and advertising for Altus charter schools. They operate out of a single office in Sorrento Valley. They have all the same administrative employees. This presentation that they have, where they have separate boards and separate operations, and that they have individual operations, is a fiction. If you were to spend a day in San Diego, you would know this. And we felt that this was you could not oversee this charter school program. And we felt that oversight is sort of the constitutional requirement for charter schools to exist. And if the petition doesn't describe what's actually going on, then we can't really hold the charter school to the petition, and it creates this sort of no oversight position for the district. So we felt we had to deny. And amongst those governance issues, there were plenty of other problems. We felt that, one second here. We were a little concerned. We also represented Grossmont in this. My office represented Grossmont in the Grossmont Secondary School petition, and we were concerned that the petitions were identical. The only things that were different between the petitions were the names Grossmont and the name Sweetwater, and then one page that had the facilities. So when they sort of procured the name Sweetwater, that was sort of the extent to its uniqueness to our community. This really was like a McCharter, and we felt that it was presenting something that was not accurate. So when we say they're likely to implement the program, we know based on their history that they're not going to implement that program. We also were very concerned about fiscal accountability. The executive director of Altus, Mary Bixby, pays herself around $375,000, at least from the last tax year that we have records of, which is 2015. And we know that her salary steadily increased over each tax year and is likely higher today. We only learned of Ms. Bixby's aggregate salary from tax records, not from the petition, not from any disclosure. She's never showed up to any of the meetings to sort of defend this high salary. And the Altus network serves only about 3,000 students. And for a comparison, Cindy Martin, the superintendent of San Diego Unified, she serves over 100,000 students and makes a smaller salary. Ms. Bixby is one of the highest paid school executives in San Diego County. And we just think that's unjust. We also know that Ms. Bixby obtained this 2015 salary, at least, while she served on the boards of all the charter schools. So we know, for example, that violates Government Code 1090, Political Reform Act, common law conflicts of interest and sort of general tenets of public education that we hold dear. And while it appears that she's no longer on these boards, and we commend the Altus Charter Network for making that decision, it doesn't eliminate prior conflicts of interest violations, and we're very concerned about that. And we also wish she would come to these meetings, since she's going to be the chief executive director of the school. She's never come to a single one of these presentations. So with that, amongst prior acts, we felt that the Altus Network has a long history of sort of unprofessional relationships with their authorizers. They've threatened litigation to Grossmont when we represented Grossmont during the pendency of that hearing. They've ignored demands by saying they're unified to operate within their boundaries by applying to Carlsbad to have resource centers that currently are authorized by the SBE that are not in the Carlsbad district that are unlawful, and we haven't heard a plan about doing anything about that. And I would say perhaps most importantly, the Altus Charter School Network, we don't believe they're very good at educating San Diego's youth. When you look at the data regarding test scores, graduation rates, dropout rates, the district outperforms Altus, even for socioeconomically disadvantaged students. Now, we don't have the data to compare our credit deficient students versus theirs, but we imagine that we would outperform them just as we have in all other measures. So I'm sure that Altus today is going to highlight some success stories, but we commend you to look at the CDE data and don't be fooled by a needle in a haystack here. And just to conclude, we're not an enemy to charter schools. We have 3 charter schools. We like our charter schools. We support our charter schools. Some of them are in our facilities. And we'd be delighted to consider a proposal from Altus that is transparent and does not permit these problems I discussed today. So we hope you deliberate and discuss what I've talked about. And I thank you for your time, and thank you so much.
Clarifying questions right now of the district's council? Yeah.
A couple of questions. So one of your assertions is that that this is a different petition that the CDE is looking at than what was originally submitted to you as a district.
Yes, so I don't have the petition that was submitted to you in front of me, but I know that the petition that was submitted to our district was submitted prior to the Anderson case. So to the extent that CDE staff quotes a part of the petition that says they submitted this to comply with Anderson, couldn't have possibly been true.
So maybe this is a Judy question then. Can maybe Judy clarify that?
So I can clarify the talking points. It's within the charter petition documents that statement is made. So I may have said directly out of the petition that would be inaccurate. It's within the full package of documents that we received. Most likely, and I don't have it in front of me, in the letter to Director Chan in terms of this is why we're submitting for the establishment of a charter school.
But you have no reason to believe that this is a
no,
materially different.
I'll tell you, just brief background of the process. Once we receive an appeal, we check with the district and the county office of education, and we do a literal side-by-side comparison to the documents that move forward on the appeal to the county office, and with the document we receive from the petition, just to determine the petition itself has not changed in major, potentially substantive ways. There's always minimal changes in formatting, but nothing has been changed. So my apologies if I presented that it was in the petition itself. It's in the charter petition documents.
And this is another question then for Sweetwater. You said that you believe that the petitioner is demonstrably unlikely to succeed in delivering the education that it argues it provides, and you used the term McCharter. From what I know of the larger network of schools, a major focus of that school system is, in fact, credit deficient students. and you indicated that you had not actually compared Sweetwater's credit deficient students to the performance of the credit deficient students that are served by the larger Charter School of San Diego Altus network.
Can I clarify? I said the CDE doesn't measure that data. That's what I was talking about in terms of comparing side-to-side data.
So have you, as a district, compared your credit deficient students to the students that are being served by the Charter School of San Diego Altus?
I believe so. I don't have that information in front of me right now.
I mean, certainly the information provided in the petition, certainly the information that seems to be publicly available on the CDE website would indicate that, at least based on the population of students that they're serving, that they are demonstrably likely to serve students. So,
can I clarify that point? The point, Commissioner, with all due respect, is not that we think that they can't operate a charter school. They've operated a charter school for 20 years. Our point is that whatever is described in this petition is not what they're doing now and not what they're going to do in the future. So the charter itself is essentially like a contract with the district, and that is our document that we hold the charter school accountable to. So we felt that since a petition was somewhat of a fiction, we thought that we couldn't hold them accountable to something that's not realistic.
I appreciate that. I think what I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, but I just like a suggestion as you move forward, whatever happens at this commission to the state board, in terms of the recommendation that this board makes, it would seem like if your argument is going to be that the petition is fiction, and it would be helpful to have a side-by-side comparison. This is what the petition says. Here's what we as Sweetwater Unified believe is fictional about that.
Yeah, and if I feel like our staff report speaks for itself, and we address all those issues in terms of governance. They claim to be operating a neighborhood school in Sweetwater. They operate out of an office in Sorrento Valley, which is like an hour and a half drive from the office. They hold meetings on weekdays during the day. According to board minutes, a parent has never attended a charter school meeting, at least in the last year, according to their website. There are no parents on their governing boards. There's promises in this petition that have not been adhered to for 20 years. So we just don't, how can we believe that they're likely to succeed in something that they haven't done for 20 years?
So I think that's a fair statement. I guess what I'm going for is that ultimately the question that everybody wants to know is are students and families going to be served? Are children going to get a quality education? Are students, in this case, who are credit deficient, going to be able to have an academically rigorous program that's going to get them to a high school diploma and to career and college success? And clearly, it sounds like the vast majority of the concerns that you have are governance related, which are very legitimate. I'm not trying to minimize those. But programmatically and academically, it doesn't sound like those same concerns. There's a similar level of concern, and certainly in the staff report.
That's fair.
Okay. I just want to.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that we don't think, I believe what I said. I don't think they do a great job. I think when you look at the statistics, they haven't significantly improved over many years. I think that they kind of stay the same in terms of their performance. I think when you compare their graduation rates, dropout rates, test scores, they perform below the district, especially even for socioeconomically disadvantaged students. So to the extent their argument is that, this isn't a reason for denial that the district performs better, but we don't believe that essentially that they do such a great job that we should ignore these governance concerns.
So, and I appreciate that. Again, I think the question is, are we comparing apples to oranges? If you're looking at total percentages within the district of people who are, performing at levels 3 or 4 on the CASP tests or whatever, when this school is serving a very unique subset of students that is much more at risk than the larger total. In other words, it appears that you're comparing
I see what you're saying.
the whole district to this subset.
I don't think that's true. I think if you went to the Sweetwater Union High School District, it's in a very low, socioeconomically disadvantaged area of San Diego. I think there's lots of students that are part of that target demographic. I think we serve more students than other school districts of that demographic. I think in our staff report, we didn't compare just all students versus them. We boiled it down to, of course, all students, and then also our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, both areas we perform better. I don't think we did that. I think we have a comparable student body.
Okay, I don't want to debate the point, but I think the big question is, if they're serving a very narrow subset, which is the credit deficient students, that's where I'm...
I think we serve credit deficient students too. That's what I'm saying.
Well, no, I get that, but then the question is, are you comparing your credit deficient students to their credit deficient students so that you're actually comparing apples to apples? And that's what I didn't see that in the staff report, and maybe it was there, but that I think that's the piece that I'm questioning. I'm not saying that you aren't doing better, the same, or worse. I just don't see any side-by-side comparison.
And I understand. I'm having a lot of fun up here, so I appreciate your comments. I don't know what else to say about that except for the fact that I feel like our district has many credit deficient students, and they're reflected in the data in the staff report.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Any others right now of the district? We may call you back up. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to move into the public comment. So that closes the public hearing piece on this item, and we'll move into public comment and then further discussion questions. Do we have individuals who've signed up?
Yes.
Okay.
The first 6 names on the list is Stephanie Starr, Saborna Sakandar, Syed Sakandar, Javier Alonso, Becky Diaz, and Sebastian Salgado.
Great. Come on up, line up if you could. If you're pulling your time, that's fine, but each of you have a minute. And again, state your full name and the organization that you represent if that's applicable, and welcome. Glad that you're here.
Thank you so much. My name is Stephanie Starr. I'm the Special Instructional Services Coordinator, and there has been a lot of talk about issues relating to governance. I want to take 1 minute and talk about our program and how we serve high-risk students. CSSD is an ASAM school, to be noted. We do excel at serving students with disabilities and English learners because we tailor our instructional program to the unique needs of each and every student. Because of our unique instructional program, we truly can customize instructional plans for students. We can adjust curriculum and make sure that they're engaged in a rigorous course of study leading to a high school diploma. Currently, 15% of our students enroll with us as English learners. 95% of them are high risk of becoming long-term. And we have a demonstrated success with moving these students towards proficiency and reclassification. We also serve a 17% special education population.
Time.
We hope that you support the charter. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Welcome. You guys can move a little bit. Those of you in line, you can come a little bit closer too. You don't have to stand so far back. It's good to see you all here. Thanks for coming up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Shabana Sikander, and I'm a student at the Charter School of San Diego. I used to attend a traditional high school, but transferred to Charter School of San Diego at the beginning of my sophomore year. What drew me to this program is the option to work at my own pace. At Charter School of San Diego, I was able to learn to stay on top of my work and be an independent learner. My grades kept improving, especially in subjects that I was struggling with at most at traditional high school. I completed high school 3 months early with a strong GPA, and I will graduate next week. I'm thankful for my parents, my amazing teachers, counselors, for the endless support, great advices, pushing me into doing better things in life. I'm proud to announce I recently was accepted to Cal State San Marcos, where I'm excited to pursue my major in sociology. This school has given me the environment I need to reach my goals potential. So please approve the Sweetwater Secondary Charter Petition so that I can continue to serve students like me. Thank you.
Thank you.
She's my daughter. Good morning. My name is Said. I studied in Moscow and I received my master's degree in law. I am a parent of the two students that are attending the Charter School of San Diego, Shabana and Zamzama. I would like to say one of the reasons that I love the charter school is because students can move at their own pace. I am very satisfied with my daughter's educational experience. The most positive thing that I find about the Charter School of San Diego is the attention they receive from their teachers. So please approve the Sweetwater Secondary Charter Petition so that the school can continue to impact student lives. Thank you very much.
Good morning to all. My name is Javier Alonso, and I'm a graduating senior from the Charter School of San Diego. And my experience with this program has been nothing short of amazing. And at the Charter School of San Diego, I was inspired by the adaptive learning environment. And for the first time in my academic life, I actually looked forward to waking up and going to school. This school welcomed me up with open arms and great opportunities. I have teachers who showed me they wanted me to be there and succeed beyond my dreams. I got to a point where I was not going to graduate on time with the amount of work I had left and the work progress that I was competing at. And with my teacher's support, they helped me graduate on time, and I will be walking in the ceremony next week. At the charter school, it is the teachers who have made this life-changing experience, all the teachers. Every single one of them came up to me and said, if you need anything, you can ask me, not just your teacher. They made me feel at home. And I would ask you to please approve the Sweetwater Secondary School. We won't let you down, I promise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Diaz, and I've grown up and raised my own family in the Sweetwater community area, specifically East Lake Bonita area, where many of my students and families reside. I've been fortunate enough to teach at the charter school for the past 9 years and feel privileged to speak to you today. I've witnessed the many successes of our students who come to us for different reasons. For example, some students attend our school because they are behind in credits and they are low in their reading and math levels. We offer them a personalized, individualized approach to learning that includes working on one course at a time and in one-on-one or small group settings. Because of the low student-to-teacher ratio, I'm able to build a rapport with my students. This provides them with a sense of security and belonging, which leads to greater learning outcomes. And it also allows us to foster students who will one day be active citizens and future leaders of our community. So I urge you to approve the Sweetwater Secondary School's charter so that students can attend a school that has positively influenced the lives of so many families and students in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have other speakers after this last one? Go ahead and call their names so they can come on up. Hold on just a moment. Thanks.
The next group of speakers are Cameron Walton, Esteban Salgado, Jeanette Perez, Saitupu Sagahero, and Eric Primack.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Sebastian Salgado, and I attended the Charter School of San Diego, from which I proudly graduated. In traditional high school, due to my unique learning style, I struggle with new teachers and subjects. Their different teaching styles and approaches made it pretty difficult for me. Ultimately, I found it difficult to build a hard relationship with them, which hindered my academic progress. The Charter School of San Diego was a much better option for me because I had one teacher at a time, and as a result, they got to know my learning style. It was easy for me to adapt to this program, and I benefited from the flexibility. I also encountered peers who were a positive influence on me, opposed to my previous experiences. And nowadays, I'm doing great. I'm attending a community college, I'm working, I do volunteer work. I hope that you please approve the Sweetwater Secondary Petition. Thank you, have a good day.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cameron Walton. I'm a student at the Charter School of San Diego.
I came to the charter school of San Diego because I wanted to go to a school where I could work at my own pace and create a structure of learning that worked for me. The charter school of San Diego also allowed me to spend more time with my family, which I needed due to many family reasons that happened and health problems within my family. The charter school of San Diego gave me the opportunity to have a flexible schedule and work closely with me to make sure my life and family needs were met while still succeeding in school. Here I did outstanding compared to how I did at my previous school. I went from getting C's to A's at the charter school of San Diego. The improvement in my grades opened up many more doors for my future. The charter school of San Diego also helped me in preparing me for college by having me create my college plan and a whole college presentation. I am going to attend San Diego Mesa Community College, and I hope to become something in the automotive field. Please approve Sweetwater's charter, which will give more students like me the opportunity to thrive in school and plan for the future. Thank you very much.
Morning.
Morning. My name is Esteban Salgado, and I'm a student at the Charter School of San Diego. And I'm speaking today in favor of the Sweetwater Secondary School Petition. Starting in elementary school, I tried to focus on my academic work, but many of my classmates are already getting in trouble, which I found easily distracting. Since I wanted to direct my attention towards school and stay away from those negative influences, I enrolled in the Charter School of San Diego. Here I'm thriving. I'm doing very well academically, and I can focus all my attention on my studies. I'm getting ahead in all my classes, and I have all A's and B's. The big difference I have found in this program helps me to stay on track and learn at my own pace, which I find really supportive and help me understand the material. I ask you that you please approve of this petition so that other students may also benefit from this program as well. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jeanette Perez, and I have been a CSSD teacher for 23 years. During this time, I have seen firsthand the opportunities this school offers students so they can be successful, productive students. Last month, several of my students became the first to graduate in their family. This has been the case for hundreds of my students. Another student who was homeless most of her life also became a graduate. Unfortunately, this type of situation is not outside the norm with our student population. One of the best things about CSSD is the design, resources, and special training we are provided, which allows us to meet the students' needs and move them forward. In fact, in March, I was honored to receive the 2017 Heart Vision Award for California Teacher of the Year in recognition of the great work that we do at CSSD. Please vote to approve the Sweetwater Secondary Charter School so we can continue to transform lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Saitupu Sangiao, and I am currently a graduating senior at the Charter School of San Diego. I've attended the charter school since the 6th grade due to the fact that my mom wanted me to go to a safer alternative for school. But the Charter School of San Diego did not just benefit my safety, it also gave me the opportunity to gain leadership skills. I participated in the California Cadet Corps, where I was able to push myself outside of my comfort zone and grow as a leader. I competed in a statewide academic competition and won first place, the highest competitive award in the California Cadet Corps. Without the Charter School of San Diego, my accomplishments wouldn't have been possible. The teachers understand that not all children learn the same way or go through the same struggles. Though it may not seem like it at times, we as kids appreciate this more than anything else. The Charter School of San Diego has been a door opener for many kids and the last door opener for some. Please approve the Sweetwater Secondary School's charter so that the children in this community are able to grow and succeed no matter what obstacles they may face. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Premack, Charter Schools Development Center. Based on the 20-plus year track record of success in turning around the lives of some of the most challenged kids in the San Diego County area, we strongly support the appeal here and hope that you will too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? That's it? Okay. That concludes that section on the agenda. Questions and comments from commissioners? of either the petitioner, the district,
I have some questions of the
or staff.
petition.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is for the petitioner. So two questions, and whoever the right people are to answer them. In the document that you handed to us, you still show Mary Bigsby as a board member for Altus Mirus, and I just want to clarify, do you see any conflict of interest in that, in the fact that she's a board member?
Mary Bixby receives no compensation from Altus Mirus whatsoever. She volunteers her time there as a director. So no, currently we don't see any conflict of interest, but we would be happy to tender a resignation if that would make the board feel more comfortable.
That's not necessarily what I'm advocating. I just wanted to clarify that because it is in the paperwork that you gave us. The other thing is, you heard the district say that they believed that that when you compare the performance of students in the larger Charter School of San Diego Altus network to the performance of students in Sweetwater Unified, or Sweetwater District, that that the district students outperform the charter school students. I made the point about this subset of students that Charter School of San Diego is serving. Do you have any commentary at all about data analysis that you may or may not have done with regards to more closely comparing apples to apples?
Sure. So just based on the one-year cohort data available on the CD website, I pulled up the MAC charter school from the Sweetwater District and also Palomar Continuation High School. And just to compare numbers from last year as far as dropout data, that's all I have in front of me right now, is Charter School of San Diego was 2.5%. And again, this is on the CDE website. The MAC Charter School was 21.1%. And Palomar Continuation School was 11.5%. So just kind of a basic look at their alternative programs contained within the district. The Charter School of San Diego had a significantly lower dropout rate from that class.
Can you speak at all to the academic, I appreciate the dropout data. Can you speak at all to the academic performance pieces that the district was addressing?
As far as, I'm not sure.
Well, it sounded, I mean, they didn't specifically say CAS scores, but it certainly sounded like the comparison was that academically speaking, the district was academically outperforming the charter school students. Can you speak to that at all?
So this is Arlene McGowan, and she handles the data and assessment portion for the school, so I'll let her address that.
Hi, good morning. Arlene McGowan. I'm part of the development team, and we did do comparative research on our student population, knowing that we are an alternative schools accountability model school, and we compared our academic data not to the Sweetwater District as a whole, but comparatively to the similar schools such as MAC Charter, Palomar, that are ACM schools. And comparatively, as far as CAS results, our grad rate as far as the four-year cohort goes, as well as our one-year annual dropout rate, we do outperform that school, specifically looking at similar schools because of the student population we serve, it's not necessarily apples to apples when you're comparing a whole district versus a similar school like ours.
Understood, but just for the record, then you're saying that there is, when looking at ASAM school to ASAM school to ASAM school, in all three of those domains, academically in terms of CAS performance, graduation rate, and dropout rate, the assertion is that the charter school is outperforming the district schools when you're comparing ASAM to ASAM to ASAM.
Correct, and we can provide that data. We do have that data for you as well.
Thank you.
Great. Curtis?
So what makes those schools similar?
Those schools are all under the Alternative Schools Accountability Model called ASAM. It's a unique accountability model set up by the state of California to review the academic performance of schools that cater specifically to credit deficient students, students with other socioeconomic factors that would reduce performance and things like that. So the state utilizes that ASAM model as the comparative benchmark for schools serving that population of students.
So does that mean they're similar in terms of their ethnic makeup, their level of students in need, number of foster kids, et cetera, et cetera?
The assumption would be yes, because they have to apply under the same guidelines for ASAM designation, and you have to supply that type of data on your student demographics.
Yeah, we used to see much more of it when the API was enforced, right? But in essence, it would be like a district's continuation school. The majority of those are ASAM schools. And so when there were measures associated with the API based on performance, ASAM schools are waived or were waived from that. They were not subject to API requirements.
This hasn't been mentioned, but I have a question about the serving students with IEPs. I'm looking on the website, and the program description is vague at best. It kind of says that they're served in the same way all other students are served through an independent study model, and there's just no clarity here. It says, please see our About page to learn more, and you go there and there's no more information. So I'd like to know, first of all, what percentage of your students have IEPs, and do you serve any students with a moderate to severe, and how do you do that through this online model of independent study?
So again, Stephanie Starr, Special Instructional Services Coordinator. Thank you for the question about special ed. My minute cut me off of addressing it the first time. We do serve a 17% special education population, and these are students that overwhelming majority come to us with IEPs already in place. In terms of disabilities served, the highest rate of disability is under specific learning disability, other health impairment, emotional disturbance, autism, and speech and language. So that's sort of the order of distribution within that 17%. Students are in grades 7 through 12. Again, the majority of our students do enroll at later ages, so mostly 16, 17, 18-year-olds. We are members of the El Dorado Charter SELPA, and so we do operate as our own LEA in terms of special education. We provide a full range of supports and services based on every student's individual needs. And so while our goal is always to get students to be as close to general education as possible, we do have situations where students need more intensive support or services, and we contract with CDE, NPA, and non-public agencies and non-public schools to provide different learning environments or more structured intensive supports if that's what they need.
Okay, how about serving English learners? Because there's no information at all on your website about services for EL students.
For English learners. So our Sweetwater Secondary School has a 15% English learner population. Again, these are students who come to us as English learners. About 95% of them are at risk of becoming long-term. So we've really carefully designed a comprehensive ELD program that has integrated ELD aspects, designated ELD aspects. Our goal with our integrated program is to make sure that students are accessing literacy while they're making progress through Common Core standards. And then our designated program is really about really focusing and building those literacy skills. So we have specific courses aligned to ELD standards and specific one-on-one and small group time to work on those skills.
And I have to say, one of my concerns here in this area is the fact that there's no information about that on your website, which really is a subtle discouragement for students who are English learners to even consider your program. And your website is entirely in English. There's no other language other than English here. No links to any information. So for parents who don't speak English, so it's sort of whether it's intentional or unintentional, it does discourage parents who don't speak English or whose children are English learners from considering your program as an option because they just don't think that there's a place for their children there. So I would encourage you to be more inclusive in your website. I also think your non-discrimination statement is very limited compared to what most are these days. Your statement of non-discrimination doesn't include that many protected classes. I mean, that's not a reason for not approving this, but it caught my attention that it was far less inclusive than others I've seen. But I am concerned about just the unwelcoming environment you have online for parents who speak languages other than English.
Thank you for that. We have a very welcoming learning environment for parents. We have a strong ELAC. Parents are at our resource centers on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and if we need to make sure that's also reflected online, I think we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Curtis.
I noticed that, we have had some students and teachers come in and talk about their very, very positive experiences. When I look at this chart that you provided, the Sweetwater School is on a different track. It's got a different board and all those things. How do we know, that there's going to be a similar experience for students going to this other track? Like, I mean, I don't see anybody here from audio. I see, I know Grossmont just started up, right? So that's a good reason for them not to be here, but.
If I could clarify, it is as a charter operating nonprofit, the same board will govern all three schools, ACCS2, Grossmont Secondary School, and Sweetwater Secondary School, if approved. The same management team that is employed by Aldeo Charter School Nonprofit will also be the management team operating all three of those schools. That ensures the consistency of the program, first and foremost, amongst those three different schools so that they can provide the individualized learning environment that we've developed over the years. And secondly, it provides for essentially full accountability and full transparency to the State Board of Education in that they can access records for all of those schools at their request.
I've found that one of the things that is an indicator for me of how well the school is doing and how effective it's being is the turnover of its staff. Do you have numbers like that for, I mean, how long do your, I mean, you've been in business for quite a while here. How long do most of your staff stay with you, or do you turn them over?
So we have tremendous teacher retention. We have the rolling average for the last 3 years is 90% retention of teachers. We provide a salary that's 5% above that of the San Diego Unified School District and is very competitive with districts throughout San Diego County. We provide 100% health benefits for employees and eligible dependents, so there's nothing out of pocket for the teachers themselves. We have a great relationship with the San Diego County Office of Ed as far as additional professional development. We do a tremendous amount of professional development within the nonprofits themselves so that all the teachers are having opportunities to grow professionally, and then they do attend additional hours at the San Diego County Office of Education. In fact, 87 of our teachers have achieved leading edge certification through the county program, and we also participate in the verification process for special settings, so teachers are gain access to cross-curricular core competency in math, English, social studies, and science. So as far as teacher retention, it's very high, and I think I don't have the exact data, but I can get it for you as far as the number of teachers that have been with us 5 years or more. I want to say that's approaching 60 to 70%. So many teachers stay with us a long time. And as Jeanette and spoke, she's been with us 23 years, I think she said.
Any others? Okay, maybe more, but not right at the moment. And if there aren't, we can entertain a motion on this item. Ari?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to move staff's recommendation.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we can have questions and comments about it if we need to. Are there any? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, one opposition, Curtis, and any abstentions? All right, so that item moves forward with a 6-1 recommendation from the ACCS on the staff recommendation. Thank you all very much on that front. And before we wrap, is there anything we need to go over before? We are going to have an August meeting?
August 15th.
That'll be the first in a little while, right? That's been a number of years, which is good. Yeah, so you've got a number of items that are coming up? Okay.
I can actually be there.
All right. And that, what's the date on that?
August 15th.
August 15? Okay.
And then we'll see.
It's gonna be like our last one, maybe that long?
At least 8 petitions.
Okay, all right. We'll head summer to rest, right? Okay, thank you all. So we'll see you all August 15th.